The first thing Manson did when he got back to LA was call Dennis and promptly got bad news. Wilson was on the road and couldn't be reached. So Manson called Jacobson, who convinced him to stay, to not return to the desert. He said that he had some great prospects for Charlie soon enough. Likely Jacobson was just blowing smoke up Manson's ass. But again, nobody knew how dangerous Charlie was, even those closest to him. Days later at Spawn Ranch, Manson learned more unsettling news. Speculators had been seen around the property. Corporate types, the ranch hands told him. Charlie placed Juanita at George's side to learn what was happening. They then discovered that Dodie was gone. The wranglers said, "Hell, they come and got her. Dragged her off to some funny farm up north. Damn shame, she never done nothing to hurt anybody." The only reason anyone would send Dodie to an institution was because she was in the way. The only person who would authorize that was George Spawn himself. Why now would she be a problem? Manson worried that the speculators were looking to monetize Spawn Ranch. He feared that George was considering their offers, and to demonstrate his interest, sent the resident crazy cat lady away. In time, Charlie learned he was right. Also at Spawn's, Tex found a letter awaiting him, a notice to report for his Army physical. He showed the letter to Manson, and while they tried to figure out what to do, they got even more bad news. Greg Jacobson had just been arrested on a minor drug charge and was in lockup. Charlie told Tex to go see Terry Melcher and get money to bail out Jacobson. Watson hitched down to Benedict Canyon, and when he arrived at Cielo Drive, was led by Melcher's maid into the kitchen and told to wait for her employer. While Tex was waiting, Melcher's girlfriend Candace Bergen came into the kitchen. Terry and his girlfriend looked like print ads for expensive liquors and leisure vacations, Lynette Fromey recalled with disdain. By Bergen's behavior, Watson knew she didn't care for the looks of him. Melcher, once he greeted Watson, said he didn't have any cash, but agreed to loan Tex one of his cars, a Jaguar, so Tex could pick Jacobson up at jail. Melcher gave Watson the keys to the Jaguar plus his standard oil card for gas. Tex retrieved Jacobson but didn't immediately return the Jag. Instead, he and Dean drove to Ukiah, where Pooh Bear was staying with Roger Smith. When they returned, Watson used Melcher's credit card to fill the gas tank of the black bus before returning it and the sports car back to the producer. This tells you something about Charles Tex Watson long before he committed murder. This man, who jet-setted to Los Angeles during his college career to show off to stewardesses and sample the drug culture, who stole someone else's business idea and then abandoned it for the easier job of drug dealing, was clearly an opportunist. You have to wonder about those moments he spent in Melcher's house. This is, after all, the same house he later sliced into through a screen window and then butchered everyone inside. Looking back, the fancy maid, the elite vehicles at the producer's disposal, the hot blonde starlet and her snooty attitude. If you don't have the same privileges, you're bound to grow resentful. I'm talking about Tex, not just Manson. Then, Wilson returned to town. The Beach Boys had released a new single, and Charlie's song Cease to Exist was the B-side. Dennis was eager to play it for the Wizard. That's when Charlie learned that the title was changed to Never Learn Not to Love, and his lyrics were altered as well. He was enraged. He also never earned royalties on the tune. Dennis and Greg did score Charlie a 2-song recording session at a Westwood Village studio early in '69. Charlie didn't understand they were just trying to placate him. By that point, nobody thought Manson was a star. Wilson and Jacobson knew he could be volatile. They tried to do something nice while patronizing Charlie, not realizing they were making the situation so much worse. Weeks later, Dennis invited the family to brother Brian's home studio for a 10-song recording session. Charlie's songs were improved, but the session was sloppy. Brian's wife, Marilyn, mom to then 10-month-old Carney, really didn't like Manson or his group. She later claimed that she spent hours scrubbing the bathroom after the girls used it. Charlie also noticed that crime had increased in the region in the past couple months. In urban areas, there was an uptick in robberies, muggings, and assaults. The news claimed it was black people largely responsible. He drove back to Barker Ranch in a tizzy over the changes in Los Angeles. Charlie, wrote Paul Watkins, appeared agitated, yet enthusiastic. He said there was more violence in the city, that the blacks were on the verge of full-scale revolution. It's just a matter of time, he declared. The shit's gonna come down. It's gonna come down hard. He began speaking of the family's role in it. What we need to do is program the young love to split. When the scene comes down, they're gonna need some place to go. Well, we got that place. We're here, and we can show the young love where to come. And we can show them with music. The more Charlie talked about it, the more convincing it appeared. What happened next changed everything. As Paul wrote, in mid-December, Charlie sent out 2 contingents from the ranch, one to Sacramento, one to Los Angeles. The Sacramento group, which included Tex, Sadie, TJ, Katie, Stephanie, Ella, and Leslie Van Houten, went to buy Zuzus from a candy connection on the outskirts of the city. I was to take Snake and Gypsy with me to Los Angeles to buy supplies and to go to Spawn's, where Gypsy would take over George duty for Juanita. The first night in LA, I went with Snake and Juanita to see the Beatles film, The Yellow Submarine. Afterward, we visited a friend of Charlie's in Topanga Canyon who asked if we'd heard the Beatles' White Album released just days before. When we said no, he played it for us. By the time we finally got back to Barker's, Charlie had gone to LA to meet the Candy Run. He, too, spent the night in Topanga and heard the White Album. After that, things were never the same.